Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Carta Magica Niagara Treasure Cup that happened this past weekend. It was 512 players with 9 rounds of Swiss best of 1 and a top 16 best of 3, which did play out as well to get to this top 16 that we see here today. So real quick, one shout outs to Carta Magica for running the event, for also supplying the deck list so we can go over them, as well as make sure to check out their Twitch channel, which have the VODs for the entire event. So there is the entire Swiss, and then there is another top 16 VOD. Both can be found right here in the spreadsheet. So it can also be linked in the description, which is also where the spreadsheet is. And if you guys appreciate all the hard work for this video, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It takes quite a bit just to get the info. I transcribe everything into OnePieceCard.dev, so it's a little bit easier for people to have the decks and know what the cards are exactly. And it just mean a lot to me. We're trying to get to 10K by the end of the month. So anyways, going into this breakdown, we do have 5 Eustass kids, 4 Zoros, 3 Kaidos, 2 Trafalgar Laws, a 1 blue purple Kaido, and a Monkey D Luffy. So honestly, like this, we don't have specifically the leader breakdown like we did for the core event, but this looks like what it would look like based on just how many people ran that deck based on the core breakdown. I think all 3 of these lists are the most popular, at least by play percentage. I think these are the 3 that people lean to the most, and so it's not too surprising to see that the top 16 is the most as well. I think people who play Law are very good at Law, but not a lot of people play it, so 2 there. And then as well as the blue-purple Kaido, I'm really excited to go over that list. It looks really interesting. And a Luffy, I'm happy it made top 16. I still like Luffy more than Zoro, but that's okay. It got Long Beach. I'll give Zoro, Niagara, and we'll kind of go from there. So we're going to go over the top 16 decks, and also just we do have the bracket there if you guys are interested to see who played what and how that went out. But we're going to go over each one of the top placing leaders, starting off with Victor's first place Eustass kid. Starting off, we do have Victor's first place Eustass kid, and this is definitely more of kind of the build that I tried to gravitate towards. There's kind of like the idea, do you have a more reactive build? You have a lot more of the event cards and like Punk Gibson and stuff like that, and even like a Straw Sword or 2. But like this one, Minimal Paradise Waterfall is a really good card, especially because it does have a good trigger in the Life is Well KO one of your opponent's rested characters cost of 4 or less. It can whiff at times, but I think it's a good card for this just to have 2, and it can help you, like if you're playing as many of the 7-drop blockers too, you could get a block, you use Paradise Waterfall. It lets you have like a second blocker sometimes, which is really great. So I think both of those are just like good reasons to run it. At 2 is probably the amount, but the rest is pretty standard, I would say. The only other thing that I personally been kind of going around is like I don't like Trafalgar Law as much as I used to. Just the fact like it's a good blocker, so the fact that it's a blocker is nice, but sometimes you don't like it is just you play it for 5 as a blocker. There's not as many times you need to refresh something. Sometimes there is, sometimes you have to bounce a Bonnie back to hand, which means you save it, which means you can play it again later. But it's just kind of, especially for a card without any counter, it's starting to be kind of like the brickiest card in my hand a lot of the time. But I do think Eustass kit is very strong. I think it's easily the most accessible deck for a lot of people to get into, not only card cost, but just how linear the playstyle can be. The 8-drop can win you the game on the spot so many times. So I think this is a solid list. I like what it does. 4 killers a lot too, but I do like to see that. And just big congrats on Victor for their first place finish there. So next up, we do have Jeffrey's top 4 Zoro. And this is a pretty aggressive build. There were a couple of interesting choices. I see some Zoros like play like really like almost mid-rangey, and I'm like, why are you not playing Luffy with this? But this is, I'd say, a more value-based aggressive deck just because of the choice of like the Uta, and like it's just kind of like an in-between of a lot of things. There's like a 1 Sunny, there's a couple VVs as well, which you can play as 4s, and then become 5Ks with your leader's effect later in the game. So that's pretty good. Sanji are running 4 Zoros, 4 Luffy. They're playing the Trafalgar Law as well to help you probably get stuff into either the range of the Nico Robin or with the jet pistols. That just means you're able to KO something with 8K or less. A lot of people are playing 7Ks right now to get around jet pistols, so Trafalgar Law is a good card for that. And a 4-5 is a pretty good stat line still, especially because you're able to bump it with Zoro. And I really, really do like Uta in Zoro. There's just so many good cards you get with that. Like Sanji's great with it, and then also just your 3-drop Zoro. Just Uta being able to recycle cards late game, and even though it's a 4K, your Zoro bumps it into a 5K for free. So I really do like Uta, even though there's no counter cost in this deck too. So I think the rest is pretty standard. Zoro is super linear most of the time. It's very, very aggressive for what it is. and just very, very strong. So congrats to Jeffrey on their finish there. Next up, we have our top 8 Kaido. This is Wilson's Kwan's blue-purple Kaido, the one that doesn't see as much play, but definitely the cooler one in my mind. It has this really cool effect of Dawn times 1 your turn. Once per turn, when one of your opponent's characters is KO'd, you may add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it to active. So it just has inherent ramp in the deck, which is great. It's 4 costs and or 4 life, which means it really stinks. Like a lot of these multicolor leaders want to be more control heavy because they have more access to more cards, but you have 4 life, which makes it a little bit inherently harder to do that. But I do like this leader a lot. I think it's going to get better as time goes on. And I think it gets better with the film starter deck. Honestly, I think there's some good cards to help that access to it. But I do like how this one kind of worked out. So the ads for this one specifically, we have the Trafalgar Law, which is a 1-drop blocker, which purple doesn't have, which is pretty shame. They're all blockers, right? And then there's Don Quixote do Flamingo. And I really do like this card and the Desert Spada in the deck because Kaido is really, really dependent on not bricking in their hand, and being able to see what cards are next and being able to find your curve when you need it is super important. Even though you don't get to draw the card, even though you have to like manually draw the card at the start of your turn, that's fine. You have the time for it, and it's very, very good. So that and Desert Spada, it really just helps you unbrick your hand a lot of the time. So that's great. Mihawk, I don't know if you're ever playing this or just it's a 2K counter, and but it's fine. It's a good 2K counter that if you do play it on turn 4, you do sometimes just need to draw 2, trash 2. So I do think it's better than like Uta and like other 2K counters that maybe purple inherently has. Better than X-Drake, I think, in this one. Sasaki as well. I'm really surprised he decided to play Onigashima. My experience with this deck is that you find enough of the ramping with the leader effect itself that you don't really need Oni, especially like late game. Onigashima doesn't really do anything. You're always going to like end the turn. Like worst case, what? Like the only time like Oni comes out is like when you have like Kaido, like you play one of your big drops, but you still like slowly build your Dawn again anyways. So, and a really nice little trick with this Kaido and the 9-drop is that if you have 10 Dawn, you can put 1 underneath this leader. You use the Kaido effect to give the do the -5, and then you get to inherently use your effect of your leader here to get that extra Dawn. And it is an active, which is actually quite impactful too, which means you can use a Desert Spotter or Blast Breath on the next turn. So it just means that you get like an extra Dawn on this leader. Unfortunately, you can't do it with the 10-drop because you need to have all 10, which means you can't have 1 underneath your leader, but that's still solid there. So anyways, I like this list. I'm going to have to try it out personally. I'll probably test it out on stream later this week, but really big shout outs to for Wilson for this finish here. Really cool to see Kaido make a big top in a big event like this. So anyways, let's go to Kyle Brennan's top 8 Trafalgar Law. We did see Trafalgar Law take 2nd place here in the Long Beach event, and this is I'll always say like everyone will have their own ratios, their own build for Law. It's just so open ended, and it's really cool to see how open ended it is with set 1, right? Like this is like the minimal amount of cards we'll have in the card pool ever, and we still have so many like different deck lists for something like this. So a lot of staples, obviously the rush cards, a lot of 1-drops with the Otama, Momo, Chopper, Beige, and Bonnie, and Nami, like half your deck are 1-drops because you want to play as many as you can so you can start doing your ramp effects. One of the Luffy that it's a really interesting one of, but being able to, like, this is like the best form of like card protection it has because it has like its own little protection effect, which is interesting. Cat Viper Brook, 1 killer, which isn't seen as much, and then the Trafalgar Law. So a lot of 1-ofs. This is a really, really personalized list for what it is, and I think that's all the good Law players have their own individual 1-ofs, 2-ofs. They know what they're finding, and when they're looking for their searches, because a lot of these are searchable off Bonnie and Nami. For example, these Law and killers are Bonnie targets there, and it's a very tough deck. Like Law has so much plays it can play a lot of the time. You have to find exactly the right ones to do. And doing that over 9 rounds and then over 4 more rounds is super duper kind of tricky to do. So just big shout outs to Kyle on their finish there. And next up we have the Purple Kaido. We saw 1 Purple Kaido in the Long Beach event get to the top. We saw 2 for this event. So this is Josh's list here, and I think Kaido list is a pretty much centralized to a lot of key cards and what we're doing. 4 blockers. You can play Black Mirror if you want. Who's Who is definitely a tech card. Not everyone's playing this one. I think Sasaki is understood to be played. Jack is also a bit of a flex card too. Babanuki is played for sure, but 4 is definitely the most I've seen in a long time. Most people just do 2, so that's interesting there. And then like the Kings and Kaidos, like this is where a lot of people have their own personal spice ratios. I think 4, 2, 2, 3 like this is probably the most common. But I've seen just so many people say like, oh, I hate the 10 drops, I'm only running 2, or like 9 drops great, I'm gonna run 4 of it, or like I'm surprised there's like a 4-2 split here with, especially with Who's Who, because personally I think like Who's Who's being like another card that can't counter with, and it gets pretty much, it's like a smaller version of each of these, still being so aggressive with how many of these you're running. But and then Bracho Bomber at a 1, and no Thunder Bagua. Thunder Bagua I think is pretty standard for a lot of builds, so not seeing in this one is pretty interesting there. And I don't have much more to say. Purple Kaido is great. A lot of people are going to be running it because they like it. 1 or 2 people are going to always top with it because of just numbers and just chances of it getting that top. So it was Joshua for this, and congrats to Josh there. So lastly, we have Luffy, my favorite leader of the current format. And this is pretty similar to how I've been running my builds. Just the idea of, you want to be very control heavy, so you want to play your Nico Robins. Playing some Beppos too is just backup copies of Nico Robins are very nice. Usopp is one of the counters. I'd say I use Brooks more, or I've been even transitioning to the 3-drop promo Luffy because it is a plus 2k counter. But the idea that you have a Straw Hat that's a plus 2k counter is great. Trafalgar Law works really well with Beppo and Nico Robin, as well as Jet Pistol. And it's a good body. Like it's a 4-cost 5k. It's great. Your opponent has to get rid of it. And it's just very, very strong there. And then top end, we have 2 of the promo Luffys and 2 of the Shanks. Not seeing any Ben Beckman, which was obviously a really big pick for the Long Beach ones. But I think like I did experiment with this guy a lot, and the fact that he is searchable because you are running 3 copies of in 2 years, which I like all these cards. Like I've run all these cards. The only one that I don't run, and I'll probably have to because it did super well in all the Luffy lists, is the 1-drop Nami from the Star deck. I don't like it as much. I always think, why would you want to use it? You already have leader effect, but it is a really good card on like turn 1. On your first turn, it's probably like one of the best plays besides the actual 1-drop Nami, just because it does get a lot of advantage throughout the game. And there are a lot of decks that can't just get rid of it inherently, so it does start to add up. So I will try this more often. I'll see if I change my mind on how I feel about it, but there's that too. So also there's no Red Hawk in this list, which I know Zoro is definitely running, and it's a more common deck or card, but it's interesting to see that not be the case. Honestly, like this looks like a list that I was running like 2 weeks ago before I got some more spice in the last week. But anyways, congrats to Liam on their finish there. Getting Luffy into this top 16, I really do appreciate it. So that is going to be it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thank you to Carta for running the event for the deck list as well as for the stream. Make sure to check out their Twitch, watch the games. Let me know what you saw about them. I haven't watched them myself because I was streaming at the same time, but I know a lot of them are pretty close matches. So that's going to be it. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you all next time.